Hello everyone, my name is Marty Serra. I'm a software developer, and today I'm here to present you to an NPM package that I developed called Formity, that it allows you to develop dynamic React forms. Before talking about Formity, I would like to talk about the situation that led me to the development of this package. I wanted to develop an application that I wanted that application to allow users to find other users, and I wanted to create different categories of groups, like sports, music, traveling, and I wanted each of these groups to have a different form. But I didn't want these forms to be normal forms. I wanted these forms to resemble those of type form. So I wanted forms of multiple steps in which the questions in each step depends on the previous answers. So I faced some challenges. I wanted to find a way to define these forms in a very simple way. And I also wanted to be able to define these forms in a way that allowed me to store them in a database. That's why I created Formity. Formity is a package that allows you to develop forms with just the JSON. In this JSON, you can define complex logic like conditions, loops, operations. Let's look at an example of a form. Here I introduce my name and surname, my age, I'll say 24. As you can see, I'm asked if I have a driving license, but if I said that I'm 10 years old, I'm not asked that question because I'm younger than 18. Then let's say what happens when I say what sports I like. I'm going to say football and tennis. As you can see, for each sport I selected, I'm asked what days I play that sport. So there's a loop in this form. This is the result we get. And there's another special thing about Formity, and it's the fact that it allows you to customize the result you want to get. So I introduced my name and surname in separate fields, but I get my full name here. I also introduced information about the sports I play in separate form fields, and I have this information in an array. So these forms are defined with just the JSON, as you can see here. I'm going to explain more about how this JSON is defined later on. And let's talk about some advantages of Formity. The first one is that you can use your own components, so it's fully customizable. You can even use components from other libraries, whatever you want to do. Another special thing about Formity is that you can use advanced logic, like conditions, loops, operations. You can even do more advanced logic than the one that you could do on type form. Another special thing is that you can return whatever you want. So you define what you want to return using operations and variables, and you just have complete control over it. And since these forms are defined with JSON syntax, you can store them in files or databases. So, well, forms is something that we deal with every day when we develop. So Formity can be used in just many applications we develop, just for sign-up forms or feedback forms, whatever we want to do. And now that I talked about what Formity is about, let's talk about the packages that Formity depends on. Formity depends on React Form. It's a package that you will mostly know, and it depends on Mongo. It's another package that I developed, and I'll talk about that later on. So, well, you will probably know what React Form is. It's a package that allows you to develop forms in a very simple way. The only thing you need to know when you use Formity is that you have to define the form fields like so. You use the use form context to register the form field to the form, and then you get the register that allows you to register the form field to the form state that allows you to retrieve the error message in case there is one. And that's all you need to know when you deal with React Form in Formity. Then Mongo is another package that I developed that allows you to create expressions written in JSON. So an expression is defined like so. The expression is defined using operators and variables. The operators are defined using objects that contains only one key that starts with a $sign, and the variables are defined as a string that starts with a $sign. Here we're using the concat operator to concatenate strings, and we use the GTE operator, that's the greater than or equal operator that's used to retrieve a Boolean value, true or false. So we call the Mongo function with the expression and the variables. And as you can see, that's the result we get. There are a lot of operators that can be used. Here, as you can see, there are arithmetic operators like the add operator. There's also the condition operator. In this case, we get a string that says that if you're an adult or not, depending on condition. And here, for example, we are using an operator that's used to transform an array. So here, from an array of numbers, we are obtaining another array that's the result of multiplicating each number by 5. So now that I talked about the dependencies that Formity depends on, let's talk about how Formity can be used. So the first thing you need to know is that you have to define the components, and then you have to provide them using the Formity provider component. Here you can see the Formity provider component, and you just have to use the components prop, and in the components prop you just pass the components. These are the components that will be referenced later on in the JSON. Now you have to define the form. To define the form, you just have to create the JSON, and you have to pass it to the Formity component. So as you can see, here's the Formity component, and it receives two props, the form prop and the onSubmit prop. The form is the JSON, and the onSubmit prop receives a callback that will be called when the form is submitted. So the JSON that defines the form is an array of elements of different types. Here we have the form. The form is a JSON of different elements of different types. We have the form type, as you can see. We have the variables type, the condition type, the loop type, and the return type. So let's look closer at each of these elements. The form element is used to define a form. So we define the form using the following syntax, just an object with the form key and an expression. It has to be a Mongo expression, the ones I talked about before. And this expression needs to resolve to an object with the following properties. We have the default values property. This property is used to define the default values. The resolver property is used to define the validation rules. So to define these validation rules, we use Mongo expressions as well. These expressions need to resolve to a Boolean value. Here, for example, we are checking that the name is not equal to an empty string. And the second one, for example, we're checking that the length of the name is less than 20. And we also need to provide the error messages. And then the render property is just to define what the form needs to render. So in here, we are using the components we defined before. And we just, to reference the components, we just create an object with the key that is the name of the component, and the props are keys in the object. So I'm going to show you this form, and then we're looking at how the form element is defined in this form. So here we have this form. We have, for example, this validation rule. We have this result. So here, as you can see, we have this form element. We have these default values, these validation rules. I want to mention something that's special about this, because as you can see, there's an underscore in front of the dollar signs. And the reason for that is that the underscore is used to treat the dollar sign as a normal character. So all this form is all this object that's in the form key is an expression, and when this expression is resolved, we need to get these expressions. So that's why we put the underscore in front of it. And then that's what we render. The return element is used to define what the form returns. So we define the return with this syntax. An expression can resolve to anything you want. So you can return whatever you want. In this example, we provide our name and surname. And we get the full name. So here, if we take a look at the return, we are returning the concatenation of the name and surname. The variables element is used to define variables that can be used later on. We define the variables using the following syntax. The expression needs to resolve to an object in which each key will become a variable. Here we have this form, and we obtain the full name. But let's look at how this form is created. In this case, we are using a variable. That's the full name. And then we are using the variable in the return element. The condition element is used to define a condition. We define the condition using the following syntax. The if property is used to contains an expression, a Mongo expression that needs to resolve to a Boolean value. And then we have the then and else properties that, well, are properties that will be used depending on the result of the expression. So here, if I introduce 31, I must if I have a driving license. But if I introduce 14, I'm not asked this question. So here, in this form, you can see that there's a condition that says, if I'm older than 18, then the following form will be used. If that's not the case, we create a variable that's driving license false. Finally, there's the loop element, and the loop element is used to define a loop. We define the loop using the following syntax. The expression is a Mongo expression that needs to resolve to Boolean value, and if that's while the result of the expression is true, we keep doing the following in the loop. So here, there's a loop in which I'm asked if I like a different sport. So I'm going to say I like football. I'm going to say I like basketball, and I don't like this. Whatever. So we have this result. The form that allows me to do that is this one. Here, we are looping in every question. So while the A is a variable, we have the A variable, the questions, and the list of sports. And while the variable is less than the size of questions, we retrieve the question, and then we asked about the sport. So Formity provides all the solutions to manage forms in React applications. I'm confident this tool can become very powerful for the business. You can return whatever you want. You can store these forms in files database. It's fully customizable, and it's not hard to use. So if you are building an application that requires you to manage forms, I think that Formity can really be a very powerful tool. And I'm also looking for contributors. I think that this project can really become very big. So if you want to contribute here, just tell me something. Thanks for attending this talk. You can find this package at marticero.me/formity, and that's everything.